Hello everyone, it's day 85 of President Bola Tinubu's administration, and the 45 ministers sworn in yesterday by the president have resumed work, meeting with senior officials in their various ministries and charting the path under their leadership. Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. You can join the conversation now on Twitter if you use the hashtag first 100 days. Remember to tag at TVC News NJ. Let's begin with an update on the Niger situation. The ECOWAS envoy to Niger Republic are saying there are hopes of a diplomatic solution to the political standoff in the country without necessarily resorting to the use of force. Nigeria's former military president Abdulsalami Abubakar said this after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu today, where he briefed him on the outcome of his mission to the landlocked West African country. General Abubakar had met with the military coup leaders and the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum after the first effort failed due to the resistance put up by the country's military. The ECOWAS envoy said the announcement of a 3-year transition plan by the military junta is solely their position, but he believes President Tinubu, as ECOWAS chair, will consult with other members of the Authority of Heads of States, and talks will also continue toward resolving the standoff.
Like I said, we started talking. We made their own points, and then I made my report to the chairman of the ECOWAS Heads of State and President. He will now consult with his colleagues, and then the ding-dong starts, and we'll get somewhere, hopefully. Hopefully, diplomacy will see the better of this thing. Nobody wants to go to war. It doesn't pay anybody. But then again, you know, our leaders have said, if all fails, and I don't think all will fail, we'll get somewhere. We'll get out of this mess.
Former military president Abdulsalam Abubakar there, who was Nigeria's envoy to Niger. State House correspondent Femi Akonde joins me now for more details. So the former president, we understand, was back in Niger, and this time he met with the junta and President Bazoum. There were concerns about the president's state of health. Did he talk about how the president is faring, Femi?
Well, Ifemi, he did not give us in details what he discussed with President Tinubu as chairman of ECOWAS. That is between him and President Tinubu, and President Tinubu will further go on to brief the Authority of Heads of State and Government on the report brought by General Abdulsalami Abubakar as the ECOWAS envoy to Niger Republic. But you know, in that country, Niamey, he talked about the state of health of the post-president Mohamed Bazoum. He said it's a matter of concern for them. They discussed that with the deposed president. But he said that the deposed president is in good spirit and is hopeful that the situation will be resolved. What they also did is to talk to the military coup leaders to ensure that Mohamed Bazoum is given the best treatment, quality health care, and just to ensure that he's properly taken care of while still being held by the military coup plotters, as they also wait for this whole political standoff to be resolved. Nifemi.
It would seem that the regional bloc itself is favoring a more diplomatic approach other than its initial threat of a military action. But what's the body language within the presidency in this regard?
Well, what the regional bloc did was to put its standby force, or to activate its standby force. That is, if they exhaust all diplomatic options, all other avenues to restore constitutional order and resolve the political standoff, that is when they will resort to the use of force. That is the last option, and they are very careful in this regard and ensuring that, well, still mounting pressure, talking to people that also have influence within the Niger Republic to try to prevail on the military coup plotters to restore constitutional order. They recorded the first step in that direction with the meeting between General Abdulsalami Abubakar and the military coup plotters. You know, this further pushes back the option of the use of force, because the coup leaders have opened up now and started talking to ECOWAS through this special envoy. We expect these talks to continue. It is when ECOWAS meets a brick wall, that is when they might again meet to consider how and when to deploy boots on the ground in Niger Republic. And you should also know that ECOWAS is getting support across the world. The latest is coming from the African Union, suspending Niger Republic from the body of the African Union, and also insisting that all other member countries should not act in a way that will jeopardize the interests of the region or not work with foreign interests to the advantage of the coup plotters in Niger Republic. So all of this is further piling pressure on the coup leaders in Niger Republic, tightening the noose around their neck, and everyone is just waiting to see when they will budge. Nifemi.
Interesting days ahead. State House correspondent Femi Akonde live for us from the presidential villa. Get back to the new ministers under this administration and what is expected of them. President Bola Tinubu has sworn in 45 ministers to drive growth in their various ministries and sectors of the economy. Among the 45 ministers are 6 women and the 24th Attorney General of the Federation. Already, they have started making some bold statements, from providing relief to Nigerians in the midst of the economic situation the country is currently faced with, unveiling a new plan for the country's foreign policy. And some are talking also about delivering on the renewed hope mandate of the Tinubu administration.
Need to deliver. We need to perform. The expectations of Nigerians are heightened. Mr. President has already set the ball rolling to put Nigeria on the course that will take it to rapid, sustained, and inclusive growth.
In due time, we'll also be unveiling a new vision for Nigeria's foreign policy, 4D diplomacy.
There's a reason why the ministry was renamed, to refocus us back. We need to bring smiles back to the faces of Nigerians.
We shall be working with KPIs. If it is monthly, 3 times, 4 times in a year, please, you better let us all now recycle.
I'm joined now by Dr. Jide Johnson, Chief Lecturer at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Also joining me is legal practitioner and public relations expert Jide Ologun. It's a conversation with the Jides tonight. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for joining me on the program. We now have a Federal Executive Council 84 days into this administration, approximately 3 months, I believe. What do you make of the time frame? Mr. Ologun, are we on track here?
I'm with you.
Yes. What do you make of this time frame? Would you say that this administration is on track relative to its campaign promise of hitting the ground running?
Absolutely. As provided for under the Constitution, the President ordered the nominees to the Senate within the 60 days stipulated by the Constitution. And if you look at Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1991 as 1999 as amended, it says that subject to the provisions of the Constitution, the executive powers of the Federation shall be vested in the President. And of course, he has the latitude to exercise this executive power either directly or through the Vice President and ministers of the government of the Federation. So they constitute the Federal Executive Council with the governors of the state in serving the nation. And the President has made it clear to the ministers that this is a season where you need to serve the citizens and not your selfish interests. And of course, if you look at Section 147 of the Constitution of Nigeria 1999 as amended, it talks about the minister's office. and also that it may be established by the president. So they are answerable to Nigerians through the president. So the ball is now in the court of the president to ensure that his vision and mandate of renewed hope is carried out by the ministers. And let us underscore the fact that these ministers are coming to office to supervise existing ministries. We have the DGs, we have the directors, the permanent secretaries. So we have structures on ground already. And what are they expected to do to deliver prosperity and good governance to the citizens? For instance, in the power sector, and I believe the oil and gas may be under the portfolio of the president himself. And from what we are hearing from some of the ministers, it seems they are willing and ready to serve. But like we say in project management, you need to monitor them to ensure that deliver on the mandate. And some of them are yet to have their portfolios. We still have the Ministry of Youth.
Indeed.
And already...
We'll get there. We'll get there shortly, Mr. Ologun. But, you talked about the need for them to match words with action, and that's the interest of most Nigerians. Let me bring Dr. Johnson into this conversation. These ministers are sworn in at a time where the country is battling a sluggish economic growth. There is a weak currency amidst high inflation, and Nigerians are, really counting on what this administration would do differently. Talk to us about how challenging it is for these new ministers at this time.
I think what is required is unity of purpose, direction, and coordination among the ministry. In recent past, we see ministries and ministers working at divergent purpose. There's no coherent direction. And I think the starting point would be for the president to organize a retreat for the newly appointed ministers, where his vision, encapsulated in his campaign team, Renewed Hope, will be shared with the ministers so that each of the ministry will be working towards the same purpose, the same direction, and not at cross purposes. And I think if that is done, that will set the ball rolling in achieving the goal that is set out by the administration in providing renewed hope for Nigeria. And once that is done, then it becomes imperative for you and I to set out our watchdog, to set out to look at the key performer index that we use to measure their performances in office, providing timeline, 100 days, after 100 days, 6 months in office, so that there's a periodic review of their performances, so that the Nigerian nation and the Nigerian people can actually get deliverables of democracy. Election is gone, swearing in, nomination, clearance, now confirmation and appointment, and assignment of role is all gone.
Indeed.
Now it's for the serious business of governance.
I agree with you, Doctor. I mean, everyone who is employed has a KPI. There's a periodic review, unlike the previous administration where we didn't see much of shake-up within the cabinet. Nigerians are looking forward to a different situation this time. But gentlemen, let's talk about the Minister of FCT for a bit. He had a press briefing yesterday where he vowed to sanitize and secure the Federal Capital Territory. He said he's ready to step on toes to achieve his goals, which, according to him, has the backing of Mr. President. Let's watch an excerpt from that press briefing.
You don't like those who will step on toes. I will step on toes because you cannot be claiming FCT is not working. When you have not done your own part, do your own part, then be able to say, look, of all the money we have been paying, what are they using it in FCT? That is then when you have the border to talk, not when you have not fulfilled your own obligation. And two, all those agents collecting revenue, we have to sit down. I have to look everything. The revenue leakages, I will stop it too. I will stop it. Because we need money to build infrastructure in FCT. We need to bring...
Dr. Johnson, quickly, typical of AS on Wiki, right? But the question is, how does the president manage the egos of the former governors on his cabinet?
Well, it is critical for him to. It's critical, and that's why I said that every minister must work in the direction of which the president wants them to work in. Every minister also exists in office based on the prerogative of the president, and it's important for the former governors in the cabinet to understand that they are no longer the alpha and omega, which they were in their respective states, calling the shot and operating like an emperor. It's a different ball game as a minister. You are just an administrative head. The real executive power resides with the president. And don't also forget that there are rules and procedure, particularly at the federal level, with the civil service, providing technical assistance and technical support for whatever you want to do. Everything must be done within the ambience of the law and within the framework of what is permissible by the guideline and the policy papers governing that particular ministry. I think that my only advice for Jensen Wike is to watch and listen, and not to be swift to hear and slow to talk and slow to act, because every action he takes in Abuja, he could get away with it in Rivers State, where was the former governor. But in Abuja, the court system are there, which can question the actions.
All right.
He should just watch his step in order not to embarrass the administration. There's no doubt there's a lot to be done with respect to the real Abuja master plan, but everything must be done within the framework of what is permissible.
All right.
And what is ethical.
Dr. Johnson,
and what is...
perhaps you should get that scripture and share it with him as well. But let's talk about the other ministries where we are yet to find a definite name. Mr. Lugu, you talked about the Ministry of Youth earlier. There's also the question of whether a substantive senior minister of petroleum will be appointed. The Ministry of Environment is yet to have a minister. We understand that has been zoned to Kaduna. But let's talk about the Ministry of Youth. The man there before, we understand, was over 50, and many people are calling for a younger person. Online, there's the mention of one Dr. Nicholas Felix, who was the youngest APC aspirant. What are the chances, and what are your thoughts in this regard?
Talking about Dr. Nicholas Felix, he's around 40 years of age and appears to be capable of representing the interests of the youth. And you know that Abubakar Momo was redeployed from the Ministry of Youth to the Ministry of Niger Delta Development in a stance that reflects the fact that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is willing to listen to the citizens. And right now, there are movements asking that this 40-year-old candidate, who was an aspirant of the presidential seat, but eventually stepped aside, can be considered, because we need to ensure that round pegs are kept in round holes, so that the interest of stakeholders can be well represented. And you look at precedents also, and then I believe that the president will be looking keenly into ensuring that opportunities are given for ample representation of the youth in the country.
But Mr. Lugu, you are the lawyer here. He already sent 48 names to the Senate. 3 of them are yet to be confirmed. We understand that the former governor of Kaduna may have opted out from his interest in, being a minister, but can he still send more names?
The issue of names is not what is expressly stated in the Constitution. For example, what Section 147 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says is that it should be in line with Section 14, subsection 3 of the same Constitution, which talks about federal character. You see, so in fact, the issue of portfolio is not stated expressly, and that is why some of the advocacy that going forward, why don't we make laws from the National Assembly to say that while names are being forwarded to the Senate for screening and confirmation, that you also attach the portfolios. But as it is now, the president has the latitude, or the council is that it should not also come up with a cabinet that is so large, given the economic realities of the country right now, because there is a huge need for prudence within the government circle as we stand and of course, performance. And like Dr. T. Johnson mentioned earlier, you need to monitor and be sure that these ministers perform in moving the nation forward, because at the end of the day, their activities will be documented against the tenure of the president.
Indeed.
I've said it before. The president of Nigeria in the Second Republic was Shehu Shagari. I don't know how many Nigerians can tell us the names of 4 ministers in 5 minutes. So it's very important that the president himself is on his toes, ensuring it's a visible transformation in this nation from poverty towards prosperity. So, and he is the one to choose those who can work with him. And from what we have seen, talking about Nyesom Wike, is the man who performed in Rivers State. And if you look at the master plan of Abuja, there is need to bring back sanity to that environment. So whatever these ministers are to do to begin to reverse the bits of impunity in the country and restore orderliness, I support. So, and it's up to the president to ensure that, like a project, that you monitor to ensure that resources are not wasted. But when it comes to boardroom on returns on investment, you can count down later and say, oh, I've made the best of choices and my citizens are better for it.
All right.
But the essence of...
I guess we're going to have to wait to see, because we've seen there's been a lot of miraculous intervention during the screening exercise, a situation where a name was changed right there on the floor of the Senate. So whether or not Dr. Nicholas Felix will be able to make it, we'll see how it happens in the coming days. But Dr. Johnson, we're wrapping up in a few minutes. Let's talk about the current structure as it is. There are about 10 new ministries or modified ministries, so to speak. We saw a few reshuffling and change of ministry happening, even a day to swearing in. What do you make of this current structure with 45 substantive ministers?
Well, for me, it's too large. This requires super coordination, because you have a lot of ministries with overlapping functions, and you have duplicity, if not multiplicity of functions. And as a result of that, it could create disharmony, it could create conflict, it could create competition, even among ministers. And that's where proper coordination needs to come from the office of the secretary to the federal government, as well as the chief of staff to the president. There is the need for a proper lead down process and procedure outlining the roles and responsibility of each of these ministers. But as far as I'm concerned, I've said it, the number of ministries is just too much. We don't need more than 18 ministries in Nigeria. I've said it. 18 ministry, 18 substantive ministers, and 18 minister of state will satisfy the constitutional requirement. America does not have more than 13 departments. What do you want to do with 45 ministries? What meaningful discussion can you have in a federal executive council that has a 74-member? A 74 in 6 hours, allocate minutes to each of them for their presentation. So it's just a jamboree. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to look into that direction and deal with the issue of this federal character that each state must surely have a minister. We have even gone beyond each state must have a minister to states having 3 ministers, 2 ministers, and you see, we've subjected it to abuse. As far as I'm concerned, it's just too much. And it's not, we just give them the benefit of doubt that there will be coordination and there will be organization with respect to these ministries. Otherwise, the competition, you saw what happened with the last administration in terms of conflict of roles, conflict of responsibility, who is in charge of what and who is in charge of who. And that created schisms, bad blood, and then policy delays and the rest of it, the last administration.
So this current cabinet is bigger than that of his predecessor. Muhammadu Buhari had 36 ministers in his first term, but that number increased to 43 in the second term. Under the law, really, the president must include a member from each of the country's 36 states. But this administration has created 10 new or modified ministries. And perhaps we should give them a benefit of doubt to see how it all plays out in the coming days. Gentlemen, thank you for your contribution. I've been speaking with Dr. Jide Johnson, who is a chief lecturer at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism, legal practitioner, public relations expert, Jide Ologo. Thank you, the Jides, for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Great.
All right, that's our program today. You can watch a repeat at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Until